More on this, we are joined now by NBC News legal analyst, Georgetown law professor and former federal prosecutor Paul Butler, as well as NBC News senior political editor Mark Murray. Paul, good to have you with us here. So we know Cassidy Hutchinson basically alleged that President Trump knew there was the potential for violence, knew that they were armed, and then said, go to the Capitol anyway. If you are a DOJ investigator watching this testimony, how big of a deal is that?
It's huge. So we already knew that the president set the angry mob on the Capitol. What we learned from Hutchinson's testimony is how badly Trump wanted to actually join that mob. He wanted to incite the insurrectionists at the scene of the crime. And we also learned that Trump knew that these people who were going to the Capitol were armed and dangerous. They had deadly weapons, and yet Trump was more concerned about protecting them than he was protecting the vice president. So two considerations for the Justice Department. The first is whether they can persuade a jury beyond a reasonable doubt that if Trump is charged with a crime, he must be convicted. And the other is, would prosecution of Trump be in the public interest? Remember, there's never been a criminal prosecution of an American president. But I certainly think that the testimony yesterday advanced the ball on both those fronts. This was a very compelling witness. And if you believe her, it's hard to think that this man should not be held accountable. He led an angry mob into the Capitol that was intent on killing the vice president.
Important points there, Mark. Let's bring you in here now. There have been calls for more witnesses to come forward. Everyone from Secret Service Special Agent, the lead agent, Bobby Engel, to Mark Meadows himself. Now, just this morning, also, House Committee Vice Chair Liz Cheney tweeted. Here's what she said. She said, White House counsel Pat Cipollone had significant concerns about Trump's January 6th activities. It's time for Mr. Cipollone to testify on the record. Do you think yesterday's testimony will compel more people from within Trump's inner circle to come forward and testify under oath?
Yeah, that's a really key test for yesterday. And as compelling as yesterday's testimony from Cassidy Hutchinson was, I think it will only be truly, truly successful if you end up seeing additional people from Trump world come forward and testify about that day. And relatedly, with the people close to the Secret Service knocking down parts of Cassidy Hutchinson's story about the lunging at the Secret Service, trying to take the wheel, according to our colleague Peter Alexander's reporting. If they end up testifying, I think that raises an additional test, and that does their further testimony, if the Secret Service does, undercut what Cassidy Hutchinson said that day? Or if they do end up testifying, do you now have more people from the Trump orbit testifying about what happened on January 6th, well beyond the incident in that presidential limousine?
And Paul, I want to follow up on what Mark just said here and ask you a follow-up on that. I mean, if we were to actually hear from this Secret Service agent, from Bobby Engel, I mean, put in context for us, somebody who obviously worked closely with the president testifying under oath. I mean, what's the rarity of that?
So, Savannah, it's unusual for Secret Service agents to be called to testify, but it's not unprecedented. This actually came up during the Clinton administration when Ken Starr was investigating the president for whether he lied about his relationship with Monica Lewinsky. And there were Secret Service agents who were witnesses. They didn't want to testify. They claimed something called executive protection privilege. Every time that went to court, court shot it down, made it up to the Supreme Court, which implied, there was never an opinion, but the court didn't take the case, meaning that there's no such thing as executive protection privilege, which means that these agents could be hauled in to testify either before the panel or in a criminal case.
To see if it gets that far this time around. I want to ask you about an issue that came up yesterday, especially in social media, this question about how much of this testimony was hearsay. Help us understand how much was hearsay, how much wasn't hearsay, and what that means if you're the DOJ, how much you need direct, witness testimony.
So as a law professor, I love this question, thinking about hearsay, and a lot of the testimony was hearsay. And so when Hutchinson said that Mark Meadows told her or Pat Cipollone told her, that's not technically admissible in court unless there's an exception. And prosecutors always want to know what your evidence is, what a judge is going to allow before you take it to court. So it's important to remember that this witness is just telling her story. She's not subject to cross-examination in the way that she would be if it were a trial, but she's also a fact witness. Again, her office was between the president and the chief of staff, meaning she was in proximate contact with the two most powerful people in the country, maybe the world. And so she's got lots of evidence on her own. She's not valuable only for what these powerful people told her. She's valuable for what she saw with her own eyes.
Really important points there. Mark, final question. Let's bring you back in here and talk about, what does this mean moving forward? Political fallout, if any, for the former president, especially as we don't know what's going to happen in the next presidential election, whether he'll take a run. And then, of course, the candidates he's endorsing right now in midterm elections. What do you think could happen following yesterday's testimony?
Yeah, and so I think that isn't still an unresolved question right now. And we need to actually see, once the committee wraps up all its work, on the totality of public opinion. And, I love looking at polls and having our own NBC News poll and people's reaction to big events. And I'm thinking that we won't really have our best gauge until we get to the fall, until we get to September and October, right before the midterms, to look at if this really has moved public opinion, particularly the crucial middle of the electorate. Remember, a lot of Republicans are probably not tuning in. They're probably, if they are tuning in, taking the former president's side on things. But what I'm really interested in is whether or not the persuadable middle has been persuaded. And I think we'll find out in the next couple of months or so.
Paul Butler, Mark Murray, thank you both so much for your analysis. We appreciate it.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.